The day empires collapsed, how World War I changed everything forever. August 1914. The world stood on the edge of a storm it did not yet understand. What began as a single gunshot in a distant city would soon ignite a conflict so vast, so devastating, that it would bring down empires, redraw the map of the world, and change the course of human history forever. This is the story of how World War I shattered an old world and gave birth to a dangerous new one. Act 1. The Fragile Peace. At the dawn of the 20th century, Europe was powerful, confident, and dangerously unstable. Great empires dominated the continent: the British Empire, the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the Ottoman Empire. Beneath their wealth and power, tensions simmered. Nationalism was rising. Countries were competing for colonies, military strength, and global dominance. Alliances were formed, secret agreements that promised protection, but in reality guaranteed catastrophe. Europe had become a powder keg, and it only needed a spark. Act 2. The Spark. Assassination in Sarajevo. June 28, 1914, in the city of Sarajevo, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was assassinated. A young nationalist pulled the trigger. Within hours, the balance of peace began to collapse. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia. Germany backed Austria. Russia mobilized to defend Serbia. France stood with Russia, and Britain prepared for war. In just weeks, a regional crisis became a global conflict. Act 3. The World at War. By August 1914, Europe was engulfed in war. Millions of soldiers marched off, believing they would be home by Christmas. They were wrong. The war quickly turned into a brutal stalemate. Trenches stretched across the Western Front. Mud, blood, and fear became part of daily life. Machine guns, barbed wire, and artillery turned battlefields into death traps. This was not a war of glory. This was a war of survival. Act 4. Life in the trenches. For soldiers, the trenches were hell on earth. Rats, disease, freezing cold, and constant danger. Every moment could be their last. When the whistle blew, soldiers climbed out of the trenches and charged into enemy fire. Thousands died in minutes. Battles like the Somme and Verdun became symbols of unimaginable loss. War had changed, and humanity was not ready. Act 5. A global conflict. This was no longer just a European war. It spread across continents. Colonies were pulled into the fight. Soldiers from India, Africa, Australia, and beyond fought in lands far from home. The war touched every corner of the globe, and its impact would be felt for generations. Act 6. New weapons, new horrors. World War I introduced terrifying new technologies. Poison gas drifted across battlefields, choking soldiers where they stood. Tanks rolled across trenches, changing how wars would be fought forever. Airplanes took up the skies, turning the war into a battle above the clouds. Modern warfare had arrived, and it was more deadly than anyone imagined. Act 7. America enters the war. For years, the United States remained neutral, but in 1917, everything changed. German submarine attacks and secret plans pushed America into the war. Fresh troops arrived in Europe. The balance began to shift. The end was approaching. Act 8. The collapse of empires. By 1918, the war had drained nations of strength, money, and hope. The Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed. The Ottoman Empire fell apart. Germany, facing defeat, descended into revolution. The old world was crumbling. Empires that had ruled for centuries were gone. Act 9. The war ends. November 11th, 1918, the guns fell silent. After 4 years of destruction, World War I was over. But victory came at a terrible cost. 16 million people were dead, entire cities were destroyed, and the world would never be the same again. Act 10. The Aftermath. In 1919, the Treaty of Versailles was signed. It punished Germany harshly. Borders were redrawn, new nations were created, but instead of peace, it planted the seeds of future conflict. The world had changed, but not for the better. Ending. Emotional reflection. World War I was supposed to be the war to end all wars. It wasn't. Instead, it reshaped the world and set the stage for even greater conflict. Empires fell, nations rose, and humanity entered a new, uncertain age. A single moment in Sarajevo had triggered it all, a reminder of how fragile peace truly is.